Just got to the end of day 24 at the Undercover Policing Inquiry, Tranche 2, Phase 2. We've been listening to yet another day of evidence of Bob Lambert. He's been as difficult to listen to as ever. I'm joined by Richard Parry, who's a lawyer, which I don't normally ever have on these things because I normally try and get activists on. But Richard, what have you made of Bob's evidence?
Not very much, to be honest. He's sort of put forward a very strange defence. It's very disappointing in a way. I expected more of Bob Lambert. You know, I've heard so much about him for so many years. And it's all coming to this focus and we're all building up to the Debenhams. And yet he simply, it's like a technique, isn't it, of not saying anything, using more words than you could possibly imagine in the same sentence. So it's a sort of, it's like senior officers speak for sort of yeah but no but yeah but no but.
I mean, sometimes it literally is yeah but no but well I couldn't but yes no. Oh, sorry, I'll pause.
I know. It's extraordinary, isn't it? And it's a great contrast, I think, from other interviews he's actually given on the media. And, of course, if you read his academic defence of his conduct, it's extremely detailed and he references this, that and the other. So he's obviously, much more intelligent than he appears, but I presume he doesn't want to appear much more than some sort of fuddy-duddy sort of, I can't remember anything, I'm too old, it's odd.
It's very. It's interesting that he's built this career based on the work that he did whilst undercover. That's the basis of his later career, and yet he can't remember any of it. We saw a lot. There were a lot of questions where, essentially, I think he summed it up really in one of his last questions. He said, I can't remember the events, but I can read what's in my report, and that's all the help I can give. And it seemed that he was being presented with these documents, and then when he was being asked about them, he was just acting as if the only piece of information he had was what was in the document in front of him about the event. Very frustrating to follow, except of course when there came to be specific questions which obviously he knew would make him look bad, like for example, did you know Sid Nicholson? No, 100% definitely didn't. No, definitely not. No, 100% no.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting, his avoidance of the Sid. I mean, he obviously knows who Sid Nicholson is. He must do. It's impossible for him not to. And yet, it was left quite quickly, wasn't it? He just sort of said no. It's like, never heard of him. Who could that possibly be? Oh, he just happened to be Special Branch Commander or something down. What was he, down in Brixton? Then so it's just absurd, isn't it? The whole thing's absurd. I mean, we already know that there was a lot of interplay between Special Branch and the SDS and McDonald's all together. I mean, they're all in it together, aren't they? Yeah. And he's obviously trying to avoid falling into the pit traps. He's being very cagey about what he wrote. But the strange thing is, we've already heard from so many officers. I mean, take Roger Pierce. He authored entire articles in the anarchist press, from start to finish, all his own work. And then he later, of course, wrote his own books, which he admitted he wrote actually the first book quite shortly afterwards, and all his memories of all that time are there. And in fact, you can see from the detail, you can tell the locations, even I can tell where they are and everything else. But suddenly, with Bob Lambert, it's like he can't seem to remember anything. He never can't remember. He's trying to avoid saying he authored a single word, isn't it? It was just part of a collegiate discussion. It's sort of he's sort of hiding behind the anarchist forms of lack of organisation to try and, as his sort of get out of jail card. We have to see what he says tomorrow, but I don't really expect very much from him anymore. But David Barr's got some pretty good questions, and you can see the way it's being presented to any objective observer. The pattern that is emerging is pretty obvious. So there we are.
Yeah, no, very much. I think we've had so many examples of events that happened where we've heard from so many witnesses who've said it was all one way, and then Bob's like, oh, no, it was definitely the other way. It's definitely as I put it in my report. I don't doubt the authenticity of my report, though I can't recall any details myself today. He's used the word today, I found very telling, as if like he could remember it yesterday, but today he can't.
I sort of think he's had a little bit of training on certain phrases and the way he should respond. Yeah, I think he certainly thought about it carefully. I thought it was also great that, of course, Helen Steele, again, thank you, Helen, managed to effectively catching out by she had a photograph of Leicester. Yeah. And I don't know why he said this, because it's so silly, isn't it? He sort of pretty much denied being at Leicester, didn't he? Yeah. Oh, no, it wasn't my van on there. And then bang, there's a photo. And then he's like, now you remind, now I can't possibly say anything else but that I was there. But But if only we had, more pieces of evidence like that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems. But it's pretty clear that these officers have just simply made stuff up. And I guess that is the nature of the game. I mean, it's sexed up intelligence reporting. Maybe that's just all intelligence reporting ever is. It's just crap.
I think part of it is because we have heard from and former undercover officers who didn't have as good a career as the likes of Bob Lambert, and whose reports didn't appear to be that sexed up. And it seems that was bad for your career. If you wanted to be successful in the SDS, you needed to make things up.
When we come, of course, to the managers, that's exactly the point we'll be putting. DCI Waite has got some interesting questions to be asked, especially in relation to his assertion that a good officer is one who effectively is a fantasist and fabricates. And you think, well, why is that? And it's why? Because it justifies the entire intelligence apparatus, isn't it? Look at these terrible threats that are out there. We must have more money for our budget. We must have more police. And then, of course, they arrest some poor souls who've been set up. And it's like, look, we told you they were dangerous. We made them dangerous. We set up the secret group and got them arrested. So, from my point of view, I was once a history graduate, and for me it's like going back in time to 1892, as I pointed out to the Walsall bomb plot, where one of Special Branch's very first operations was to set up anarchists in a fake plot and get them imprisoned. So it's like really nothing's changed. And that also struck me. I mean, this is slightly going off at a bit of a tangent, but Roger Pierce, he was the officer, or ex-officer, in fact, later came to the tribunal to defend not wanting to give out information from the files from the 1890s in relation to that plot and other material in relation to anarchists. So when a book was being written, which was Alex Butterworth's book about the history of the radicals at the end of the 19th century and the Special Branch involvement, of course, Special Branch, even today, is trying to keep those files closed. Why? Because it's still the same. That can be the only possible reason. 100 years later. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're completely right. I mean, we saw sort of like we saw that really with one of the last things he was Lambert was questioned about this mass hit on the Crawley and Horsham hunt, where he makes up the idea that there was a secret meeting of 16 HSA activists who were also secretly ALF activists, telling that all the SABs to come into this mass hit to bring weapons, to be ready for a fight, only to come if you're ready for violence. I mean, really, just like I don't anybody who's been involved.
Nothing happened.
I mean, right, yeah, and then it turns out, on the day when he's driving people, there's someone briefs everybody, look, make sure you don't bring anything that accidentally could be viewed as a weapon, because you're going to get nicked for it. It's going to be very heavily policed.
And then of course the police take credit for, oh look, we stopped this this major battle.
Yeah.
So yeah, actually it sort of goes back again, doesn't it, to 1968 and how the police took credit afterwards for, look, the demonstration in October 68. Yeah, we had it all covered, all those police. But none of this really was a product of intelligence. I mean, it was just normal policing in that sense. I mean, this whole SDS operation is completely untenable, isn't it? Every aspect of it. But it's worse than that. I think. My feeling is that there was a change in the 80s. We have trying to think back to the context. We're talking just post the miners' strike. We're in the middle of Thatcherism. They've got complete political cover, haven't they, for their actions? Personally, I'm thinking whether or not in the animal rights movement this was not of particular interest to MI5, and so the police knew that there were not eyes on them, and that they must have thought, perhaps we can just really push the boat out on this, because animal rights, if it's not under scrutiny from another state agency, we've got carte blanche to do what we can. Anyway, utter moral degradation of the SDS and its officers, I would say, a large number of them at least. Yeah,
there was some reference to the SDS having supremacy in the animal rights field, I seem to remember. I forget where that comes from. But yeah, I think you're completely right. I think animal rights was something they could demarcate as their own little area.
I think so, yeah. Outside of MI5 sort of control. They could pass, obviously, the reports would go up to MI5. MI5 had a sort of overarching watching brief, as it were, on anything, within the territory that might be slightly subversive. But they weren't particularly interested. So they wouldn't have probably, this is my feeling, wouldn't necessarily run agents. I do, though, recall something a bit naughty going on with MI5 but in the west of the country. A lot of that was put in a witness statement that's been completely redacted by the inquiry, so we shouldn't say any more about it. So there is obviously dodgy stuff going on, but where that leads, who knows?
Fair play. We're back again tomorrow. More Bob Lambert. We
can't wait.
Yeah. I get the impression we're going to get to Debenhams tomorrow, which I think is probably going to be the most newsworthy thing that comes out of all this.
I actually think that it might be a bit of a damp, is that the right word? Damp squib tomorrow. As perhaps one of his devices was, I'm not sure. I'm sort of almost now interested in how he's going to handle the whole exit strategy stuff, because I think when it comes back to, Belinda and how he treated her, obviously he's already exited 3 relationships, but the way he dealt with exiting, as it were, from his relationship with Belinda is particularly cruel, and I think we'll end with that. But yeah, it's all pretty shocking stuff, and we're only in tranche 2.
There's a long way to go. I'm exhausted. We'll call it a day there. See you tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll do a Twitter Spaces tonight, probably around 7ish. I don't know. I'll do it when I can. Thanks for joining. See you all again tomorrow. Cheers, Richard.
Cheers.